Longhorn fans, Sooner Nation, welcome to episode 164 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Oklahoma, and the University of Texas. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, then there were four. The University of Texas will be in Dallas, Texas, at Jerry World to welcome in the Ohio State Buckeyes Friday evening. The other matchup on Thursday is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Penn State Nittany Lions. Starting with the University of Texas, biggest underdog since when, Kevin? You are a 6-point underdog. Biggest underdog since when?
Man, I'm not sure. I'm assuming Tuscaloosa when we played against Alabama last year. I know that's the last time we were an underdog, period, in any game.
Do you feel like an underdog?
Absolutely. However, I don't feel like we're as big of an underdog as people are saying. Like people saying we have no shot seems to be the national narrative, and I do disagree with that. But I do think Texas is and should be the underdog in this matchup.
Will Howard has thrown for plus 300 yards in his last two playoff games. This coming off a season where he only eclipsed the 300-yard mark once in the regular season. Have they figured something out offensively, or is it just simply a paradigm shift to say we have to get our playmakers involved and we've got to get them the ball?
Well, I think that's what they discovered, right? We talked about this Michigan game that they had, just one of the most bizarre game plans we've ever seen from a talented football team. They wanted to go out and prove something, surely to themselves, and I guess to Michigan, that they can beat Michigan playing Michigan football. When you don't need to play Michigan football, just playing Ohio State football would have been good enough to beat this Michigan team. I think they were so in their heads about this. They went out and they looked horrible. They looked just completely out of sorts offensively, and it cost them the football game. But it was a huge wake-up call for them because ever since then, they've just decided, hey, look, we've got all these playmakers. Let's just get the ball in their hands and beat teams the way we should beat them. But this rarefied talent that we have at the receiver position, and you have two good running backs. So let's just get them the ball and make things happen. And they've been more creative offensively, moving their guys around. And the two defenses that they played so far in Tennessee and Oregon have had no answer for it whatsoever.
Look, I don't know that Tennessee or Oregon is as good as Texas's defense. Maybe as good as any of the defenses left, right? I think it's possible these could be the four best defensive units that we saw in all of college football, right? What we have remaining. But Tennessee and Tennessee and Oregon were no slumps. And they just both of them got boat rolled, right? I mean, it wasn't even close. And I just wonder, what does Sark and the defensive staff, what are they thinking in terms of game planning? Like, what are you trying to take away from Ohio State? In other words, yes, I think Jeremiah Smith is going to be the best player on the field. The talented.
Yeah, he's a superstar. He's a superstar. Yeah.
Are we trying to take him away? Is this going to be a bracket him situation and make somebody else beat you? Are you trying to take the pass game away completely and make it fall to Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins? Is it, hey, championship teams run the ball really well, we have to take away the run, force them to pass? Like, what do you think the Texas makeup is causing them to try to enact?
No, that's a good question. What I think, if you look at all that talent they have at the skill position, I think
Ohio
the biggest
State
weakness in that, Ohio State, yeah.
Okay.
The biggest weakness has to be Will Howard. Can you rattle him? Can you get in his head? Can you get pressure on him? Can you get to him early, hit him a few times, make him start looking for the rush? And can you disguise some coverages and force him into a few mistakes? basically what Michigan was able to do. They forced him into some bad throws, and it got in his head, and he was never the same. I think that's what Texas is banking on. We face Will Howard every year that he's been at K-State. Obviously, he has much, much better talent this year and a better scheme. But I think if you're Texas, that is your easiest path to disrupting this offense is getting after Will Howard, getting pressure on him, maybe trying to get him flustered a bit.
Y'all were undefeated against Will Howard, 33-30 overtime win, 34-27 at Manhattan, 22-17 at Texas in 2021. You waxed in 2020. Will Howard wasn't there in 2020.
He was.
He was there in 2020.
He was, yeah.
Was he starting
quarterback that day? Yeah.
Okay, I take it back. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I got to look at this box score here. What? How did he? Because y'all beat that. That's one of your biggest wins.
Yeah, that was Tom Herman too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we unleashed. That's the day we unleashed Bijan Robinson for the whole country to see.
Am I to read that right? 172 rushing yards?
That's right.
Wow.
And that's when he was a true freshman that year. Yeah. That's when we really knew what we had with that guy.
That K-State team, well, they were 4-6. They still had Deuce Vaughn and Malik Knowles.
It was a weird year. It was a Kobe year. It was weird.
Yeah, but they did not have the talent of Ohio State. Clearly it's not a direct comparison. Will Howard's playing some really good ball, but we've seen Will Howard throw up some stinkers, right?
Correct.
We've seen him struggle against teams he shouldn't struggle against. The most glaring one was against Michigan, but there's been others this year where you're just like kind of left with. He was never considered a Heisman finalist at any point in the year, and Quinn at times might have been given the nod. However, I'm just going to go ahead and ask: are they like the same college quarterback?
No,
is Will Howard and Quinn the same? Are they? If you interspersed Quinn Ewers right now for Will Howard, would the line be any different than the +6 to Texas?
Probably not.
I don't think so, man.
Probably not. The problem for Quinn, though, is just, his high school rating. That's where Quinn gets in trouble. That's where the criticism come in of him because, him being a 5-star and being the highest rated ever prospect, which I told you so many times, isn't fair because he never had a senior year evaluation. I've seen quarterbacks or just players in general who are 5-stars as juniors, and then once they get into their senior year and everybody starts moving up and down, they might lose their 5th star and head down to a 4-star. I'm just curious if that would have happened with him if he would have had a senior year in high school.
Yeah, what's fascinating to wonder is if he would have liked that senior year back, if he would have liked to do things differently.
Yeah.
If the Ohio State NIL, first ever $1 million man, if it was worth it, and maybe it was.
Yeah.
Maybe $1
million, right?
Well, and I don't, in the world of NIL, especially even back then, I don't know that we can all guarantee that he got fully realized $1 million.
No, we got our offensive line. We got those guys for $50,000 each. Pocket change when you think about it, right?
That was a big deal.
It was a huge deal. Yeah, now you look at it, it's like, man, it's the biggest steal ever.
So I don't know, but anyway, I wonder if he thinks about that. Number 2, I think in terms of quarterbacks, Ohio State's saying the same thing about Quinn, right? If we can, a la both Georgia games, if we can get to Quinn and disrupt him, he has tendencies that he's exhibited in the past where he gets off balance, forces some throws that he probably doesn't need to try to throw. However, if I'm Ohio State, I'm saying let Quinn beat us. I'm saying take Trey Wisner out of the game, take Jaden Blue out of the game, which I think is the better likelihood after what we saw against Arizona State. I'm just not sure Texas can run the ball. And then if you put the ball in Quinn's hands, whether you rattle him or not, enough chances are going to occur. He's going to make one or two bad throws. And if you turn him over, that I think is how Ohio State is likely going to attack Texas, which is stop the run, force Quinn Ewers to beat you.
I completely agree. And Texas has been so up and down, right, with their run game from 1 week to the next, right? You see them run for 200 plus against A&M, and then they can't do it against Georgia. And then they run for almost 300 against Clemson and can't do it against Arizona State, right?
So those two are the ones that are like, whether it's recency bias or whatever, the one against Clemson had me thinking, well, crap, maybe Texas really is as good. Because if they can run the ball like this in the playoffs, well, my God, there's not a team left that can stop them.
I thought the same thing.
Does it make sense? Though? I mean,
we came out yards rushing in the playoff
against Clemson. I mean, Clemson is not Brent Venables' Clemson's defense, but they're pretty good still. Like really effective.
We know they've got dudes. They got 3 NFL defensive linemen. 3.
Yeah, and so to come out of that game, you're like, my God, and then to see what you did against Arizona State, you're like, well, I know Arizona State is a nice story, but they don't got Clemson's defensive line. There's no reason Arizona State should have stopped them. So now I'm left going, well, God, if you can't run on Arizona State, how the hell are you going to run on Ohio State? I can't make that leap. I can't get there. And
that's understandable.
That's what has me nervous. Not nervous, I guess. Listen.
You're excited?
I'm not going for either one of these teams. I can't cheer enough for either one.
Even if you hate Texas, and I know a lot of you listening do, it's hard to root for the Ohio State Buckeyes, right?
Under any circumstance.
And guess what? In case you didn't know this, guess who we open against next year?
Ohio State.
Yep, in Columbus. First week 1.
You should make that trip. It's a good football trip,
man. I've heard.
They're obnoxious.
We deal with each other, right, at the Cotton Bowl, but it's never. I've never felt threatened in any way, or any way, like I was going to get attacked.
Uncomfortable. Yeah, I agree.
Never at the Cotton Bowl. Even sitting on the OU side of the stadium, which I've done a few times.
I felt embarrassed. I felt embarrassment a lot.
We've all been through that, but it's different. It's not like that.
When we went to Ohio State, and forgive me if I've told this story, but there's enough listeners out there that haven't heard it. Ohio State fan in Columbus, especially in the late teens when it was still Urban Meyer. And I mean, I doubt anything's changed with Ryan Day. They were very polite, bordering on and including condescension and patronization. Like they were patronizing fans. Oh my gosh, thank you for making the trip. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to have Oklahoma here. Oh my gosh. And it got a little old. Like even me and my buddy Nick looked at each other like, this is a little much, right? Like they're laying this on thick. But it was almost all Ohio State fans before the game. It's like, we're just so happy you're here. The minute we beat them down and planted that flag, it was a different environment. And maybe rightfully so. Probably Oklahoma would be the same way. But, man, it was rough. And I remember my friend wanted to get one more victory beer, and we went into the wrong bar, and it was an Ohio State bar. I mean, they're all Ohio State bars. But you talk about feeling uncomfortable. I walked in, and it's like all eyes are looking at you, and I'm like, oh.
It's like the music just stops playing.
Yes, and I had to so he's like trying to get one night, and they don't want to serve him. Where they were taking our money 3 hours prior, they did not want to and he was getting a little frustrated, and I'm just sitting in their corner going, come on, bro, let's just call it, Luckily, 3 OU dudes happened to walk into the bar, and I knew 2 of them. Shout out to Chad Thomas. And they're kind of bigger guys, so that I was just like, oh, thank God. I don't think anything's going to happen. But it was just nice to have a couple of good old boys to walk in.
I will say, when the flag plant happened, I do feel like most of the fans are already out of the stadium.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that this was a reaction to the flag plant.
They were mad
because a reaction to getting beat
the crap out of them.
Yeah.
They got, first of all, they're not used to losing games at home, period. And
100%.
I don't care what the score was. You guys really put it on them that night. Lincoln Riley had an incredible
He
game
was in
plan.
he was in his back. You talk about receivers, and how bad it was this year for Oklahoma. I think on that team was like Lee Morris was our number one receiver.
Yeah, it didn't have any talent. CD was obviously a true freshman, so
Yeah, that was second game of
it
the
wasn't.
season. We didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
think
didn't know
you're
what.
relying on him, Dimitri Flowers,
Yeah, and so anyway, all that to
Mark
be said,
Andrews.
that's next year, Kevin. Let's worry about this year. We're 15 minutes in. Here's the matchups for me. You tell me if I'm wrong. There's two matchups, and these will decide if Texas advances to the finals in the first ever 12-team playoff. First, matchup number one, the Texas secondary versus the Ohio State wide receivers. How do they guard these receivers, specifically Jeremiah Smith? Are they bracketing him? Is it man on man? Is it a zone coverage? Is it, are they just trying to confuse Will Howard? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts and how the secondary approaches this matchup? Because this might be number one.
it's a great matchup, right? We talk about good on good, and it's what you expect and what you should have when you get this deep into the playoffs, right? You should have strength on strength, and we'll see who comes out on top. This is an incredible receiving core for the Buckeyes, and I think we mix up our coverages. I think you will see Jahdae Barron matched up on him from time to time. I think you'll see him bracketed with a corner and a safety. At times, I'm referring to Jeremiah Smith. And then you have to trust that we can zone up on the other guys or on certain packages, depending on the coverage, man up on them. But I think you see a multitude of different coverages just to try to confuse the quarterback more than anything else. Because I really think attacking the quarterback is going to be Texas's greatest path to getting after this offense. And what I really want to see is, can they stop the run with a light box? That's the Michigan game plan. That's how Michigan was able to beat them. They had a light box defensively and still was able to stop the running game. Now, this would be much easier if we had our defensive tackles from last year, but we don't. Our defensive tackles this year have still been really good, but I want to see, are they going to be good enough to hold up against their running game without having to dedicate, 6 or 7 players to stopping it. If we can do it with the light box and focus on the pass, I do think we can cause some issues in coverage.
Matchup number two. The Texas rush game versus the Ohio State rush defense. Oregon had negative rushing yards against Ohio State. I don't know that any of us saw that coming, especially with a mobile quarterback, way more mobile than Quinn is. Texas, I think, rushed for a total of 58 yards against Arizona State, 300 yards against Clemson the week prior. Is Trey Wisner, you talked about this last week, that your big concern going up against Georgia was the lack of a physical running back. Is that going to bite you against Ohio State? And what do you think? How do you think Sark is going to scheme up a run game against Ohio State?
I think they're going to really see if they can overpower them, right? Obviously, they got some size in the middle, but they're not as big on the edges as Georgia is. So I want to see with Cam Williams back if they can really get something established to that right-hand side. Or can they get the counter game going back like it was against Clemson, pulling linemen and really setting them up that way? And they're going to have to. I just don't think you can beat Ohio State without having a run game. Now, I'm not saying it has to be the Clemson run game, rushing for 300, but you like at least 150 yards rushing to really keep it honest. Because if you can keep them honest, it just opens up the play action and the RPO game on those intermediate routes, which Quinn is pretty lights out when it comes to running that style of offense. So if we can get that going, we really have a chance in this game.
People are trying to make weather a big deal. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal.
No, I mean, the weather, it's as far as fans being able to get to the game.
Yeah. I'm not,
It's
a night game. They'll have all day to get there. I'm just not.
Yeah,
to me,
it's got to be smart and get there early. Get there early if you're going to be traveling. Do
Um,
everything 2 hours, 3 hours earlier than you normally would.
it's not a home field game, but it's as close to a home field as Texas would get in this
I certainly
situation.
hope so.
The only thing that I think would be better is if NR, and I don't know if it would be any better, but is if NRG hosted it. Those two, Jerry's World, NRG. Is it still called NRG?
Who knows, man? Stadium's
I don't know.
always
They've had
changing.
so many different
I know
names,
what you mean. The home of the Houston Texans. We'll just call it that.
which is a sweet arena, a sweet stadium, by the way. I watched OU get beat by Houston there early on.
Were you there?
Yeah. Ed Oliver was a dude you could see him from the stands. You could look at Ed Oliver and go, "Oh my God!"
Or you
Like
get someone who
you could
followed his
not block.
recruitment the whole time. And I'm looking for him, and he just looked like Tommy Harris out there.
Yeah, he was unbelievable,
He
and
looked
you
like
could see it.
the next Tommy Harris for sure. He's had a great career. He's a really good NFL player too.
What are early indications in terms of crowd split at the Cotton Bowl?
Well, it looks like
60-40 Texas, 70-30.
that's what I'm expecting, but it's weird. We'll see if this weather is going to prevent maybe some Ohio State fans from making the trip. That's what I want to see. We'll be there.
Here's the problem with the Ohio State fan. They have plenty of money. This is not a poor fan base.
No,
Ohio State alum is doing just fine. So if they can figure out a way to get there, that's number one. Number two, they're one of those schools, and it's really Ohio State, Michigan, and A&M, a little bit of Texas, but really I put more of this on A&M, that have such a domineering alumni base that even in Dallas, if you just got the Ohio State fans from Dallas, it's going to be, you're going to be competing, maybe not toe-to-toe with Texas, but they're going to be.
But they're everywhere, especially in a city like Dallas. Yeah,
they're just everywhere.
Fans from all schools are represented there. So, yeah, I'm curious. I think without the weather, it may be 60-40, even 55-45, but we'll see. We'll see how many fans hold off on traveling. And who knows, maybe they're just anticipating playing for the championship game, so they're focusing on that, trying to get to Atlanta as opposed to coming down to the Texas. I think that's what happened a lot with Texas fans. They were just kind of anticipating coming to this game, so I think a lot of them skipped out on the Peach Bowl.
Texas is +6. Who do you got?
Come on, man. You think we're stopping the momentum wave here? I'm riding with Texas till the end. I don't know if they win the game. It's a tough matchup. But I do think they'll at least cover.
I'm taking Ohio. I take Ohio State to cover, and I pin it all on the running game. I just
on whose running game?
Texas's lack of a running game. To me, that's the biggest matchup. It's that time of year. You're playing big boy football, and if I'm a Texas fan, I'm worried that you can't run the ball. If you can't run against Arizona State, I can't make the leap to how you're going to run it effectively against Ohio State. Now, Sark in his bag, right when he's in his bag and when he is clicking, is as good as offensive mind as there is in the country. So if he can game plan or figure it out, I'm probably picking him as an offensive play caller right now in the country. Who would I be missing?
Ryan Day can scheme up some stuff too when he's in his bag.
I know. You know what I think is weird about Ryan Day is that his beard is so dark.
It's off-putting, it, right?
He has to, right? He has to.
It appears like he does. It looks like he does.
It's off-putting, Kevin. That's all. It's just off-putting. That doesn't really affect the way he calls plays, but I don't love it. However, I can't. Anyway, it's the right thing. I got text. Okay. We'll talk some more about this at the end of the show. The other playoff, Notre Dame, Penn State. I mean, this is a Riley Leonard versus Drew Aller matchup. I think these teams are very evenly matched. Penn State is a 1.5 point underdog. That essentially a pick 'em. Penn State is 2-2 when Drew Aller throws at least one interception. I think that means Notre Dame is really going to try to get him into some bad spots, force him to make some throws. But he's a good quarterback. Again, none of these quarterbacks are winning the Heisman. I don't think any of these quarterbacks are winning the Heisman. But they're all solid football players that have made good decisions for a long time. Drew Aller, I think, fits that bill. Notre Dame's offense is averaging 40 points when throwing it less than 30 times. When they throw it more than 30 times, they're only averaging 30 points a game, saying that Notre Dame really depends on the run, and that includes Riley Leonard's feet, to be effective. The biggest thing these two teams have in common, in addition to being really good defensively, really good in the trenches, is their lack of big playability. So whereas you have Ohio State and you're like, how do I stop Jeremiah Smith? How do I stop these two running backs? That doesn't seem to be the issue. It's who can come up with some big plays to possibly put the other team in a bad spot. Notre Dame against Georgia, they don't return that kickoff, and I'm not sure how that game ends up.
Well, don't forget about the strip sack, which led to a touchdown right before halftime.
Those two scores, boom, boom,
back-to-back, literally on back-to-back plays, essentially.
And I just don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Notre Dame doesn't come up with that against Georgia, I didn't know if they had enough. Well, I'd say the same thing about both of these teams. So it's an intriguing matchup. It's old school. Let's start. I'm going to start with this question, and then we can just go from here. Does Notre Dame getting 2 days less rest, as physical as their game was against Georgia, is that a big deficit against Penn State?
It's a slight deficit. It's especially the fact that Jeremiah Love was injured. But from what I hear, he's good to go. So yeah, I mean, it makes a slight difference. But once you get this late in the season, man, everybody's banged up. Penn State's got guys that are banged up. Just what it is, and it's like you want to go win a title, you got to do it, right? No excuses. Texas has guys banged up. Ohio State, everybody has guys who are hurt. So you got to get after it. So yeah. So it makes a difference, but not a huge one.
I got a couple different questions to come at you with. Coaching edge: Marcus Freeman, James Franklin. James Franklin's been doing. James Franklin's been doing a lot longer.
Yes,
has a historic success. Marcus Freeman is the new guy on the block with a lot of energy, not afraid to take risks. It sounds like you snuck in there with Marcus Freeman. That's who you're taking in the matchup in terms of coach on coach.
I haven't seen him truly screw it up yet in a huge moment. We've seen Franklin do it a few times, so yeah, I'm gonna go with Marcus Freeman here.
Which team do you think is more likely to have the big play? You think it's Notre Dame?
No, actually, I think it's Penn State.
Really?
Yeah, because I like their running backs, and I just I'm a talent guy. Drew Aller is just really talented, man. I think he just has the ability, and I like.
He's more so than Riley Leonard. More so than Riley Leonard. I'd agree with that. Yeah, I'd agree with
exactly. That. And I like the tight end. Tyler Warren is a big play guy. They can use him down. He can stretch the field despite being 6'6", 260. He can really stretch the field. He can line up in some wildcat and make plays that way. I think they're just a little bit more multiple offensively than Notre Dame is. But I love the 4 running backs in this game. Both teams have 2 really, really good running backs. But yeah, I think I like Penn State's ability to make big plays.
I do not trust James Franklin, but I haven't trusted him now for 2 games, and all they've done is rolled. Notre Dame definitely got tested in the Georgia game, which I'm not sure Penn State has been tested yet in the playoffs. They did hold up to Oregon really well in the Big Ten championship game, so I'll give them that. Kept it a game. I just like Notre Dame. I like what they're about. I like what Marcus Freeman's about. I think they're playing with a little less pressure on them than maybe Penn State is. I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover the 1.5.
I am as well. But like I said, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Penn State won the football game.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think so.
Just,
I don't
I
think
mean, I
so.
like their defense. Abdul Carter is also kind of banged up. I believe he's a game time decision. He hurt his, I believe he has a shoulder injury. He's their outstanding edge rusher for Penn State, by the way. Probably
I
a
didn't
top
even
10 pick.
I didn't even ask you about this, but I want to ask, speaking of edge rushers, is Colin Simmons the best edge rusher left among these four?
I don't know. Maybe Abdul Carter, with his experience, you might take over him. But the fact that Colin Simmons is a true freshman, we get 2 more years of him. He's got 9 sacks as a true freshman, man. I mean,
Maybe he enters the portal, Kevin. Maybe I don't want to put that fear in you, but maybe he enters
you
the
never
portal
know.
after this. Maybe he
It's
decides to go get paid. Maybe Texas can't
Maybe.
afford him if they lose this game.
You never know.
All right. So here's the projected odds for potential matchups. So for those that took statistics class, with 4 teams left, that means there are 4 potential matchups. I actually sucked at statistics at OU, but I did pass the course. In the event Ohio State wins and they play Notre Dame, Ohio State would be a 7.5-point favorite. In the event Penn State wins and plays Ohio State would be an 8.5-point favorite. If Texas wins and plays Penn State, they would be a 3-point favorite. And if Texas wins and plays Notre Dame, they would be a 2.5-point favorite. So in either case, Kevin, odds makers are telling us that the 2 best teams are Ohio State and Texas. You comfortable with that? You feel good that Vegas is probably right about that?
I do. I would feel pretty good in a matchup against Notre Dame or Penn State. I mean, it'd be tough, obviously, but I would feel better about them than I do about this Ohio State team.
I think if Penn State played Ohio State, that I would take Penn State to cover. I don't know if I take them to win, but I think I would take them to cover. It's really hard to beat a good team twice in the same year.
I completely agree. Abdul Carter, by the way, 11 sacks this year for
Wow.
for Penn State. Yeah.
Kevin, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. I don't think we shouted them out last week, so we need to make sure and do it this week. We are sponsored by Brown O'Haver. Brown O'Haver is a public insurance adjusting firm working for the insured, not the insurance company. I'll give you an example, Kevin. You've seen those fires in California. It's awful. Alice's sister, Laura, had to evacuate from her Pasadena home last night. All indications, though, is that her home is okay as of January 8th. But still, man, scary. If you were to lose your home, in one of those fires, you could call somebody like or including Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510, and they would adjust the claim for you. If you think about it in terms of this fire, there's so much going on. Insurance companies are going to be stressed. Resources are going to be stressed. There's just a lot happening in environments like that. You want an advocate that's looking out for you to make sure that you are going to get properly compensated for your loss based on your policy. If you know anybody that's in a situation like that, whether it's in California or anywhere, Oklahoma, Texas, whatever, call Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510. Let them work for you, not the insurance company. Kevin, I've seen a lot of roofs going up this winter. It's a good time to put a roof on your house because it's less likely to be hit by a hailstorm in the next 3 months. If somebody is ready to put a roof on their house, who should they call?
We got to give our friends at Pioneer Roofing a call. They'll go out, give you a free inspection, let you know if you need a roof replacement or if you don't. If you do, they can help guide you through the claims process. Give them a call, 405-549-2712.
Kevin, Oklahoma news. They are not playing in the college football playoff, in case you didn't know that, but they are in the transfer portal game. And since the last time that we've met, Oklahoma has made 3 moves in the portal, adding Cal wide receiver Josiah Martin, FSU edge Marvin Jones Jr., and OSU linebacker / safety Kendall Daniels. And I believe there's another OSU linebacker that we're in on. Starting with Marvin Jones, number 75 player in the 247 portal rankings, and then number 11 available edge. 25 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. And then for OSU, probably their best defender on a not very good team this past season. Sounds like a guy that's going to take over maybe the Dason McCullough role, especially depending on how Kendall Dolby responds to injury, who was also in that same cheetah position. Josiah Martin caught passes for Jackson Arnold at Denton Guyer and was recruited but didn't end up going. So I don't know. They sound like good pieces to add. Thoughts on specifically Marvin Jones Jr. and Kendall Daniels?
Well, he was a big time recruit. He's a 5-star guy coming out of high school. Chose Georgia over FSU. Didn't work out for him there. Goes to Florida State. I mean, their whole season was weird last year. So he's been a guy who's clearly talented, hasn't really been able to put it together just yet. So I think the hope for Venables and his staff, and I'm sure for Oklahoma fans, is that you can get the best out of this kid. You can finally unlock that talent that's deep in there, but hasn't really shown itself on the football field yet. So we'll see. I mean, it's a move. I think it's a smart move to go for him. I know he did visit Texas before. He would have been kind of a rotational guy with the edge, because Texas feels pretty good about the guys they have now with Colin Simmons and Trey Moore and Ethan Burt. I think perhaps he has a chance to start for OU.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a move. If he would have ended up at Texas, I would have felt good about it.
I mean, we also got news along those lines of edge. We got news that R. Mason Thomas is coming back. Again, praising OU for what they've been able to accomplish on the defensive side of the ball and keeping that talent. Listen, you lose Stutzman and Bowman are two big losses. Okay? Like there's nothing, but you didn't, they're going to the NFL. They're going to the NFL. There's nothing you can do about that. Other than that, you saved everybody except Dason McCullough. And maybe that was a mutual decision. I don't know. I don't know if I want to give coaches that much credit.
It hadn't really worked. It hadn't worked out.
No, I liked his talent though. I liked his talent, and I love the way he looked. He looked like in my mind, what an SEC kind of cheetah should look like. But that's neither here nor there. Other than that, R. Mason Thomas staying, Robert Spears Jennings staying, secondary players, Dominic Williams staying. I just feel really good where we're at defensively. Now, that being the case, we have not named a defensive coordinator. When we were recording last time, I talked about Wes Goodwin coming from Clemson and not being excited about that. It looks like the talk on Wes Goodwin has died down a little bit. Internally, it would still be Brandon Hall. I think that's potentially a mistake if they were going to go that route. Look, some people have said that Brent Venables needs to continue to call the defense and be the guy on the defensive side of the ball. That's why Oklahoma hired him. That's fine, but you have to have a strong person in that coordinator position because he's got a lot of to deal with as the head coach at OU, especially year 4 on the hottest, maybe the hottest seat in the country.
Yeah, everything's on the line this season.
I don't know that you could just say, hey, Ben Arbuckle, you have the offense, I got the defense, let's go make this happen. Like, no, I don't think that's a very good.
That cannot happen this year. No.
I don't think it's a good recipe, Kevin. So
he's got to be involved with everything.
He's got to, yes. And you know what, dude? Even down to special teams, like we still don't have a special teams coordinator. There's just a lot of different factors that.
Now, is there a chance that you're looking at somebody who's still coaching?
I mean, anything's possible. A couple.
Maybe a position coach from Ohio State or Penn State.
A couple of guys that I saw in my research today, and these are things online, is Brian Brown, the DB's coach at Ole Miss, Lance Guidry, the DC at Miami, and then Jonathan Packey, the defensive coordinator from Duke. Those are some other names that have been bandied about. I don't really have any information on them. I don't see anybody that's still playing. And I don't know. When you look at these 4 teams, if it was somebody off of one of these staffs, it's probably not at the coordinator level, right? It's
No,
probably
no,
a
no. It
linebackers
would likely be a
coach or
position coach. Yeah.
I guess anything's possible, but I just don't know. I'm happy about the good win thing kind of calming down, but nothing to say he doesn't get hired here quickly. I don't know.
Didn't really work out at Clemson, right? We saw what their defense looked like this year, especially. I don't think Dabo felt like the defense matched up to the talent that they have out
Well,
there.
y'all
So I just
ran.
remember,
Texas ran for 300 yards against them.
yeah, they were just there all day. And yeah, when you look at the talent, when they're lining up, you look at those names. If you follow recruiting, you're just like, okay, he's a dude. It just even just watching them play individually, you can say, okay, that's a dude, and they've got dudes everywhere, but it just didn't match that on the field this year.
Yeah, I'm not excited about it. So we'll see. Hopefully, I think he needs a strong personality, though. I think he needs a leader in the defensive side. I don't think he needs a yes man. We've had a yes man with Ted Roof, and I don't think it was very effective. I think Zach Alley was pretty effective. I really do wish he wasn't leaving. I like the
Yeah.
youthfulness. I like the energy. Um, whatever. All right. Anything on the Texas transfer portal front? I don't have any notes on that, but is there anything?
Yeah, I mean they got a kid, a defensive tackle, which is a major position of need for
That's
next
always
season.
good. Always good.
Yeah, Travis Shaw out of North Carolina. He's transferred from North Carolina. Big, 6'3", 330. Really big kid. He's kind of like Marvin Jones in the sense that he's a 5-star kid who hadn't really lived up to it so far. Little sign for optimism. He was good this past year. He had the best year of his career last year. So I think what Texas is hoping that getting getting him into more of a winning program, seeing what has happened with Texas defensive tackles over the past few years, right? Tavondre Sweat going into last year was not a guy who was looked at favorably when it came to the NFL draft. And then one dominant year, and he's a second round pick and would have been a first if not for an off the field mistake he made in the draft process, right? Byron Murphy, he was always a dude. But what we're seeing with Alfred Collins this year, who I'm hearing is getting a second round grade now after having a great year. Vernon Broughton, who was not even looked at as being draftable, is getting second or third round type talk. So I think bringing him in and showing him, hey, look, if you put in the work, you can be setting yourself up for a big time payday with the NFL. That's what they're hoping on. So we'll see what happens. But it's a huge position to need, and they're not done. I think they'll really attack it. You got 5 days after this, and then there'll be another portal window after the spring. I think they'll be active during that too.
Any portal defections being rumored at
Not
this
yet.
point for Texas?
No, haven't heard anything. I think everybody's locked in for this Ohio State game. We'll see what happens there once the season ends, whether it be on Friday or after a national championship game. We'll have 5 days. Our players will have 5 days to enter the transfer portal. So we'll know pretty quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of guys who wanted to hang around and try to win a national championship but then decided that, they want a bigger role somewhere else, will leave. So we're not immune to that. No, nobody is nowadays. I don't care how good you are.
Transitioning to basketball, Oklahoma gets rolled by Alabama this past weekend. Oklahoma now ranked 17th. They host A&M tonight at 8 p.m. Look, 8 p.m. is late enough, right? I think late 8 p.m. is a little late for a midweek game. But next week we host Texas, and it's a 9 p.m. tip on a Wednesday, Kevin. What is happening? Dude,
Yeah, man,
listen, this is not an old man rant. This is just like life rant. Who is going to Norman at 9 p.m. for a basketball game?
Yeah, it's not one of those ones where you're expecting a lot of people to be there.
Look, I know everything's about television, but there's just so many channels and ESPN Plus and all the ESPN range of channels. I don't know why 9 p.m. has to be a game, but whatever, that's fine. Oklahoma hosts A&M on tonight. They got to look to bounce back. I think the PTSD over the last 6-7 years for Oklahoma fan is seeing them climb in the polls in the non-con, only to fall precipitously in any sort of conference play, a la the Big 12, now the SEC. The Alabama game is an okay loss. Alabama's a top 5 team. You're on the road. However, it's the manner in which the game occurred. You got the living crap beat out of you. And it's not, this is an incredibly important bounce back game for Oklahoma. A&M is ranked 10th in the country. They're no joke. But they got to bounce back, dude. They've got to, and not just bounce back and play well. They need to win the game because it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, we talk about this conference as being, a football powerhouse, which it is. But we look at this basketball conference too, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. Texas, who looks like they're in for a pretty rough season. So they played A&M, who's ranked number 10, on the road, and they lost by 20. It was actually tied at halftime. They got dominated in the second half. Last night, they lost to Auburn, who's ranked number 2. 87-82 was the final score. Auburn was up by 20-plus points in the second half before Texas tried to rally back. And then they played number 1 Tennessee on Saturday. Travel to Norman to play OU after that. Then they go to Florida, who's ranked 8th. So, yeah, this is they got A&M again, Ole Miss, and their old coach, Chris Beard, coming to Austin on January 29th. I don't know what that's going to be like. So then Alabama coming up, number 5, Kentucky, number 6. So, yeah, this is a very tough basketball league.
Who's a bigger douche in the SEC basketball coaching world, John Calipari or Chris Beard?
I have to say Beard because at least Calipari has won a national championship.
How close did Chris Beard get with Texas Tech? Did they make the Final Four?
National championship game, actually.
Yeah. Chris Beard's psycho. That dude is he was a weird psycho coach. I know y'all were probably. He was the one who's gotten to the altercation, right, with his girlfriend at the time. Am I remembering this story?
His job at Texas. That's exactly what happened. That's what cost him his job there.
And he's one of those dudes. He's one of those dudes. When that happened, nobody was surprised.
Actually, I think it's more disappointing than anything. Hold on. No, don't take someone being intense to think that somebody beats their wife. It's different.
I didn't say he beats his wife. I'm saying a domestic violence call at 5 a.m. You're not surprised it happened to Chris Beard. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know, man.
That's all I'm saying.
No, hold on. Because being a psycho on the court sometimes doesn't bleed over into your personal life. I was surprised. I'm like, dude. Well, I was just more disappointed than anything. And it cost him his job, man. No matter what happened. And I don't know what happened.
All right, let's think about for it. Let's talk. Okay, Rick Barnes is at Tennessee, right?
Yes.
Number 1 Tennessee. They're doing really good. I don't know that I trust Rick Barnes in the tournament, but they're really, really good. If Rick Barnes is at Texas and somebody says there's a 5 o'clock call for domestic violence, I am shocked by that information. I am floored to think that Rick Barnes would involve himself in something, God forbid, one way or the other. Reading about it on Twitter with Chris Beard, one of the least surprising things I've ever read. Can you agree with that sentiment? Do you see where I'm going? This isn't a Texas coaching thing. This is Chris Beard.
I know. I'm not taking it that way. I'm not taking it that way.
You're saying everybody deserves the benefit of the doubt.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, I just wouldn't think he'd involve himself in something like that, despite his psychotic behavior on the court. We have psychotic. Yeah. There are psychotic coaches all over the country, in all sports. Obviously, I'd be much more surprised if something like that happened with Rick Barnes. Absolutely.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. It'd be like Lon Kruger. It'd be like something happened with Lon Kruger. You'd be like,
what?
What are you talking about?
When it happened to Peter, it was just like, oh, man, come on, dude. You're starting to get this thing rolling.
Chris, all right. I don't want to go negative on this, Kevin, but I got one more comparison. Chris Beard or Kim Mulkey? Who's the worst human being? Chris Beard or Kim Mulkey?
No,
I know you don't like these. I know they make you uncomfortable, Kevin, but this is where you got to go sometimes.
It's Kim Mulkey, man. Yeah.
She is so uncomfortable, man. She is so uncomfortable.
She is.
I mean, she just like, it is so cringe, you know? It is just like,
And why? She's so good as a coach. Like, the results already speak for themselves.
Look, I don't know about Angel Reese, if she's likable or not. I think that you could go a lot of different ways. But the fact that she played for Kim Mulkey did not help her likability at all, one bit. You could have played for Dawn Staley at South Carolina. Nobody likes Dawn Staley except unless you're a South Carolina fan. And Angel Reese would have been more likable.
I have zero problem with Dawn Staley, especially compared to Kim Mulkey.
Well, I mean, of course, I don't love Dawn Staley. I think she's a little bit much, but talk about a heck of a basketball coach. What she's done with that program is pretty freaking impressive. It's pretty freaking impressive. Really is. I don't have to like her, though. I don't have to like her.
No.
Because she's a good coach, Kevin.
No.
Golly. Question whether I like Dawn Staley or not. No shout out to Dawn Staley.
I'm shouting out.
Shout out to there's one basketball coach that we're shouting out on this show. It is Jenny Baranchek. Great coach.
She is.
And notice I didn't shout out Vic Schaefer because I do not like him.
Why would you? He's a Texas basketball coach.
I do not like him, Kevin.
He's a great coach.
That's all I'm going to say about him.
I wouldn't feel good if you did.
I will say this. He's no Kim Mulkey. To his credit, whatever credit that means, he's no Kim Mulkey, is he, Kevin? We can agree on that.
No, man. Yeah. And she's like that for no reason, man. Like, you're already a great coach. And maybe that's why she's a great coach. I don't know.
Dude, she has gotten...
She's wired differently.
If it's possible, she's gotten crazier too, right? I mean, like, we can agree on that. Like, she has gotten, like, progressively more and more nuts.
She's wired a little bit differently than most.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I got a movie review for you before I let you go. Then we'll talk a little more Texas, Ohio State. I'll let you have some closing thoughts on that. The Fire Inside. Have you heard of this movie?
I don't think so. It's not familiar.
The girls had one last day on Monday of no school, and it was really, really cold. So I was like, let's go to the movies. Fire Inside is gold medal winning women's boxer Clarissa Shields biopic from Flint, Michigan. Pretty good movie. 2 thumbs up.
Okay.
2 thumbs up. Look, there is nothing better in American sports, subsequently then followed up by in American cinema, that deals with the rags to riches story. Right?
Agreed.
So, America has a lot of problems. Right? We've got our problems, and we could go through. There's a long litany of issues that the United States of America has, personified greatly in the fact that this Clarissa Shields is from Flint, Michigan, which Flint, Michigan was horrible when we were kids. Remember, that's all the Michael Moore movies, and Flint, Michigan is the epicenter of everything that's wrong with America in a lot of cases. However, when it comes to sports, the meritocracy that exists in America is alive and well. Now, does it take a community? Yeah. If you go watch The Fire Inside, you can see the community that it took, right? She didn't do it all by herself. But still, if she doesn't do it, it doesn't get done. And that's what's cool about America, is this woman, I don't even want to say girl, this woman decides at age 11, I'm going to be a boxer. And not only am I going to be a boxer, but I'm going to be the best in the world. And Kevin, she has no excuse to be the best in the world. She has very little access to training facilities. She's got every conceivable family issue that can exist. She lives in Flint, Michigan, for goodness sake. And yet she rises above all of it, Kevin. All of it. And dude, I love it. I love every second of it. And the way they did this movie, really, really good.
Okay.
Really, really good. You won't watch it, though. You probably won't watch it. You don't like
We'll see.
movies, Kevin. You're anti-movie.
I'm too busy watching sports, man.
Yeah, I know. And I'll tell you, is it weird though that the college football playoff is it's having to find its space in my sports watching. Like in a lot of ways, I figured like I've moved on to the NBA and I've moved on to college basketball.
Yeah. It's like, oh, college football's still going on.
And it's like, oh, I was watching indoor golf. Did you see this yesterday?
I know I heard about it, but no, I didn't watch it.
It was okay. It was fine. I don't really want to go into that. But I'm just saying that golf has, because they had the event in Hawaii this past week.
Yeah, it should be over. College football typically is over by now.
And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Now, as a Texas fan, y'all are still very much in it. As an Oklahoma fan, it's like we've moved on, right? It's like season, what's going on in 2025, what's going to happen. So I'm finding, you talk about watching sports and having the bandwidth, having to like carve out bandwidth. But I'm excited about the Notre Dame game. I'm excited. I think that to me is like old school, bang your head together football. I would love for it to be 13-10, and just be a real slobber knocker.
Yeah.
The Texas-Ohio State game, I don't know who I want to win. I want it to be compelling. I want it to be compelling, but
no, I get it, man. It's hard when your rival in another school you don't like are literally competing for a chance to play for a national championship and would be the favorite to win it. So, look, it's like I've been saying this whole run, man, as a Texas fan who has been a diehard fan and stuck with the program throughout the entire Charlie Strong. Well, first of all, the end of the Mac Brown era, the Charlie Strong era, and the Tom Herman era. It's just awesome to be still playing in a game that matters this late in the season. So I certainly have a major appreciation for it, because when you go through a decade like Texas went through, then you definitely have a greater appreciation for winning and just having competent coaching and talented players who are actually being developed into really good college players and NFL players. So whatever happens this Friday against the Buckeyes, it's been a great season. And hoping the future continues to stay bright. But, man, we got an opportunity to win a natty here, and I hope we can do it.
Yeah, good for you, Kevin. I'm glad you're doing okay. I'm glad you're doing good. I'm glad you've got a reason. I'm glad you got a reason to live, Kevin. I'm glad you have a reason.
It feels nice.
Yeah, fantastic. Kevin, we will be back. It's on Friday. We'll probably record on either Saturday or Sunday morning, recapping the game. For the sake of the podcast and for you, maybe we get a Texas win, so we go one more week on the podcast. The numbers, Kevin, have been really good. Like, we're getting traction.
We appreciate everybody watching and listening. So we appreciate some of with this. More to come.
We've had some of our best numbers. We got some plans for 2025, maybe some live shows. So it's kind of cool. We're building this. We're building this from the ground up. You know what I mean? We're not doing the transfer portal, Kevin. I'm not going to go trade you in for better talent. All right, we're just going to keep developing you. Trying to get you.
Yeah, it's his business, man.
It's a Tavondre Sweat. You're like the Tavondre Sweat of podcasting. We do this like 8 years. You might be able to get us over the ledge. So that's okay. That's kind of what we're hoping for.
Playing the long game here.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not the Riley Leonard of. Anyway, Kevin, have a great afternoon. Enjoy your football game. Everybody else, enjoy all the games. Stay warm. Boomer.
Welcome.